Hi, welcome to Cine Recap. In the opening scene, Moira awakens in a field and finds down wounds on her wrist. She sees a cross close by that expresses a wake up on it. The message moves her to a psychological haven where she is blaming her dad for doing something to the ship. Two men remove her and infuse her with a medication to cause her to fail to remember the mysterious about the boats and her dad. Abruptly, Moira awakens on the boat and understands that she was simply dreaming. She some way or another nodded off after the kid showed up out of the cabinet. After glancing around, Moira understands that individuals have locked him inside the cabinet once more, frightened of his capacities. She attempts to persuade the commander to let the youngster out on the grounds that he may be frightened. Nonetheless, he and every other person in the room accepts that they need to keep the youngster locked until they know how he made you in the wake of falling into the ocean. In the meantime, in the lower compartment, individuals become apprehensive. They have begun a resistance to the commander's gathering, yet they don't have the information on the most proficient method to get the boat to its objective. The one who drove the kid over the boat is presently one of the heads of the gathering, however her girl has misgivings of her mother's viewpoint. She is a similar pregnant lady, Tove, whom Moira saved toward the start of the excursion. Tove imagines that her mom is deranged and needs to join the skipper's gathering, all things considered. She converses with her sibling about it, however when he doesn't show interest, she just gets a weapon and goes into the room where the skipper and his group are resting. Right away, the gathering is suspicious, however they bring down their firearms after figuring out Tove wishes to go along with them. The kid begins banging the cabinet stronger, making Moira stressed for him. Against everybody's advance notice, she strolls towards the cabinet to let him out. Abruptly, somebody fires at her and Daniel hurries to save her. Not long before the slug hits Moira, time freezes. She is stunned, yet she pulls it together prior to getting the youngster out of the cabinet. He has the pyramid which Moira accepts he used to stop time and save her. She asks him how he made it happen, yet finds no solution. All things being equal, the youngster pulls her external the entryway. When they leave, time streams once more. To individuals in the room, it looks like Moira and the youngster vanished before their eyes. Out of nowhere, a caution begins booming, shocking everybody on the boat. The commander flips out and goes after Daniel, inquiring as to whether he knows who Moira really is. Tove stops them and requests that the commander start acting responsibly since he is the main man who can save the boat now. Then, at that point, the caution stops, yet a consistent deceiving follows. A lot of individuals go solid after hearing the ticking, as though they are being entranced by it. Practically all travelers locally available walk down the passage and to the deck. Then, they get bouncing, going the boat in a steady progression. The ones that are as yet cognizant can't stop the crowd of individuals committing mass self-destruction. Moira drives the youngster into a room and requests to realize what is happening. In answer, he murmurs that somebody is paying attention to their discussion, which is the reason she should request that the Maker find the solution. Moira does not know who the Maker is and who is paying attention to them, yet she discreetly consents to do as the youngster says. From that point onward, he gets her to the shaft, her room. He lets an insect out of his hand and makes a passage inside the shaft too. As Moira follows him through it, she arrives at a huge scene, one that would never fit inside a boat. She before long finds that it is the spot she experienced childhood in, yet the kid is no place to be seen. Outside, Daniel races to Moira's room and uses the youngster's method to make the passage once more. It is clear that he knows something about what is going on with their ship and the passengers. He also reaches the same landscape and meets the boy. They talk about how Moira doesn't remember anything and claim that she is the only one who can stop all this. Their conversation is vague, but it seems as though they have been on the lost ship before. On the ship, Lucian and his wife WWW are in their room, afraid of what is happening outside. A lower-class man named Jerome barges in and ties them around the room to prevent them from walking outside. It turns out that he has some kind of history with the couple and wants them safe. He also tries himself to the room, in hopes that he won't be hypnotized as the rest. Daniel, on the other hand, rushes to the strange instrument in the lower part of the ship. This instrument is responsible for what is happening to the passengers at the moment. Using a remote, Daniel tries his best to stop the machine and save the remaining passengers. He is interrupted by a worker who thinks he is an intruder. The men get into a fight, but Daniel manages to knock the person out using the remote. At the same time, Moira is still in the landscape that she entered through the tunnel. She finds a mental hospital, the same one her father built for her mother years ago when her mental health deteriorated. Upon entering the place, she meets her father. He asks her where she hid an object, but Moira doesn't know what he is talking about. Suddenly, two men pull her to a chair and inject her. In the following scene, Moira wakes up in her bed on the ship. She doesn't know if what happened to her was reality or just a dream. All she can tell is that her father is the cause of her memory loss. Next, the captain meets her and demands to know how she disappeared earlier. Mora finally reveals that the owner of the lost ship and the one they are in is her father. 4 months ago, when the ship disappeared, Mora's brother also disappeared. She thinks that he was on the ship and had found out what their father was doing. Mora might have been on the lost ship as well, but she doesn't remember anything because her memory was erased. She thinks that the captain won't believe her, but to her surprise, he seems to understand. He shows her the passenger list of the lost ship and points out another shocking fact. It is revealed that the captain of the lost ship was none other than him. Mora continues and discloses that her father is obsessed with studying how the human brain works. This makes her believe that whatever is happening to them is an experiment set up by her father to study the human brain. Suddenly, Mora notices a beetle walking on a table nearby. She captures it and uses it to open the tunnel beneath the captain's bed like the kid did earlier with the tunnel under her bed. The plan works and both the captain and she are led into a forest. The pathway leads to the captain's burnt-down house that his family died in. Meanwhile, on the ship, the captain's second-in-command, Wilson, receives a message that says sink ship. His assistant also sees it and starts panicking. Wilson knocks him out and calmly proceeds to dispose of his body. It is then revealed that Wilson works for Mora's father and is on the ship to catch the kid. Suddenly, Daniel is able to turn off the instrument and people stop jumping off the ship. However, he seems to be too late because only a few people are left alive. Right before a woman jumps off, she comes back to her senses. To her, everything that just happened looks like a dream. Next, all the survivors gather on the deck. There are a total of 7 survivors including Wilson. Then, we are finally shown the face of Mora's father Henry. As she had expected, he is the mastermind behind the lost ship and everything that has happened since it disappeared. He is conducting some kind of sick experiment and playing with the passengers like puppets. The man can see a pyramid through his window that looks like a bigger version of the one the kid was holding. A while later, the survivors gather up to discuss their next move. Daniel reveals that the ship's engine has stopped working and if it isn't fixed soon, they are going to die in the middle of the ocean. The captain orders all the men to work to fix the engine and all the women to look for other survivors on board, if there are any. Similarly, the 2 enduring ministers are approached to utilize the message and keep conveying messages to the ship organization. En route to the coal stockpiling, the gathering of men run into abnormal dark stuff descending through the roof. It becomes bigger constantly and they are excessively frightened to contact it. At Daniel's idea, they choose to overlook it and spotlight on fixing the motor first. A similar bulge should be visible developing by and large around the boat. In the meantime, Mora and the commander go into the passage underneath her bed once again. Like Mora did before, they go inside the psychological haven to search for the youngster. Mora makes sense of for the commander about the psychological haven and how it appeared as a result of her mom's disease. Behind them, Daniel has additionally entered the passage to search for Mora. The team strolls into the structure and Mora can in a flash tell that the spot feels not quite the same as the spot she experienced childhood in. She likewise makes sense of that her dad just adored one individual in all his years and it was her mom. In any case, her mom's emotional well-being got awful after she birthed her youngsters. Along these lines, their dad never truly cherished them. While talking, they arrive at a room in the cellar where Mora was held. Outside the entryway is the boat's frame which causes the skipper to accept they are still in some way inside the boat. Back on the boat, a lady contacts the dark stuff descending through the roof. Her palm becomes dark as a result of it and she can never again feel it. Her condition deteriorates when she understands the imprint is developing quickly. Simultaneously, Tove begins fantasizing about the most horrendous day of her life. It was the day she saved her sibling from a land proprietor. The man needed to show her family a thing or two, so he physically attacked Tove before her whole family. In any case, the occasion took a turn when she got her hands on a stone and hit the man to death. Unexpectedly, she awakens from the bad dream and falls into her buddy's arms in tears. Elsewhere in the boat, Wilson gets inside the bureau where the youngster was found. After he leaves, the motor is fixed and the boat begins moving once more. The ministers in the control room need to figure out how to guide the boat, so they draw out 2 or 3 books from the rack. Be that as it may, to their complete shock, the book just have a solitary sentence composed all through them. It says, "May your espresso kick in before reality does." Then, we are returned to Henry, who is currently in front of the gigantic pyramid. Wilson comes to meet him and is remorseful that he hasn't tracked down the youngster yet. He is requested to finish the responsibility soon and help to remember the significance of the examination. Back in the psychological shelter, Mora and the chief are returning to the entry when they see a similar dark stuff projecting through the walls. They stop to check and are stunned to see it moving. Mora has a go at contacting it, however stops when Daniel shows up with perfect timing. He guarantees that he followed them down here, however the chief and Mora have zero faith in his honesty. The commander directs a firearm at him and attempts to get him into a room before Daniel drives him away and utilizes the bizarre remote to magically transport him to a woodland. Mora is left staggered and frightened of Daniel's capacity. As she requests that he move away, Daniel asks on the off chance that she truly doesn't recall him. With hurt in his eyes, he uncovers that he is her significant other and they have been hitched for recent years. Mora doesn't trust him and gets him into a room prior to running outside. Out of dissatisfaction, she discards the firearm, yet it ends up hitting something midair. After checking, Mora finds a suspending entryway that leads back to the boat. While she moves back, her dad Henry watches her and the other survivors on a few screens. The episode closes as we see the commander clearing his path through the woodland and moving back to the boat. Just this time, he winds up on the lost boat and glances around to see many such ships encompassing the one he is on. If you like this video, please do subscribe.